Hey, Pastor Josh here. It is June 8th, and we're looking at Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 19 through 31. And what I got to ask you is that have you ever been in a spot where you've had to watch somebody else suffer for the poor choices that they've made? They've chosen not to do things right. They've even been warned not to do it, and they did it. And then you are forced to watch them suffer and to watch consequences come their way that you would have wished if there was any way you could have taken it away from them. That's exactly the heart that Jeremiah is experiencing today. He has come to the realization that judgment is coming to the people of Judah, to the people of Jerusalem, and he is full of intense anguish. So let's look at our text today. Starting in verse 19, Jeremiah says, my anguish, I writhe in pain. He's just full, so much pain. Oh, the walls of my heart is beating wildly. I cannot keep silent. So he's feeling this extreme pain. His heart is even racing because of what the people of Judah have done. The people of Jerusalem have rejected the Lord, and now there's this intense judgment that is coming from the north. The Babylonians are going to come and destroy the entire land. He says, I hear the sound of the trumpet, the alarm of war. I hear these sirens going. If you remember, we had talked about likening the sound of the trumpet to some sort of air raid siren, or even a tornado warning siren telling us to get inside. And so he says he hears it, and he's scared. He's writhing in pain. His heart is beating. He hears this alarm of war. Then he says crash follows hard on crash, like those crashing waves hitting the shore. These crashing waves are coming toward Jerusalem. The whole land is laid waste. We don't see anything. It used to be fruitful. Now it's all terrible. It's all laid waste. Suddenly, my tents are laid waste. My curtains in a moment. So he's talking about, when he says my tents are laid waste, he's talking about his house. He's talking about the place, his home. It's laid waste. His curtains in a moment. All done very quickly. Everything seemed to be going okay, and then suddenly, here comes this invading army. And he says in verse 21, how long must I see the standard and hear the sound of the trumpet? In our day and age, we have not had to encounter this sort of ongoing military fight and attack like our World War II ancestors saw. I got to know a World War II, or many World War II veterans that have served our country overseas, and just the strain that type of warfare puts on a country is unimaginable. Until you go through it and know it, it is just unimaginable. And so Jeremiah is saying, how long must I see this standard, this banner from the enemy? How long must I hear this sound of the trumpet that war is coming, the enemy is coming, there's a battle going on? And then God is speaking here. That was Jeremiah 19 through 21. And then God begins to speak in verse 22. He says, here it is. Here's the reason all of this is happening. For my people are foolish. They know me not. They are stupid children. Now, usually we teach our people not to use words like that, but in reality, this was the truth of the people of Israel. They were stupid. They have no understanding. They don't know what is right. And then God says they are wise in doing evil. They don't have understanding because they're wise in how to do the wrong thing, how to go against God. They don't listen to him, didn't listen to him. He tried over and over again to tell them to turn away, but they didn't. But how to do good, they know not. They don't know how to do good, but they're wise in doing evil. Verse 23, I looked on the earth, and behold, it was without form and void. This is Genesis 1:1 language, or Genesis 1:2. We know in Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then verse 2 says, and the earth was without form and void. Those are the exact Hebrew words underneath that form and void, saying that there was no form, there was no void. Then we continue to see creation allusions right here. And to the heavens, and they had no light. And if you remember, on the days of creation in Genesis 1, what was the very first thing God created? And the Lord said, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And so we see reversal of creation. He looked on the earth, was without form and void. He looked to the heavens, there was no light at all. So there's this reverse creation language that is going on. I looked on the mountains, and behold, they were quaking. There's this huge earthquake that is happening, very cosmic events. And all the hills moved to and fro. I looked, and behold, there was no man, and all the birds of the air had fled. I looked, and behold, the fruitful land was a desert. So you see all of the destruction that happened. No person, there's no man. All the birds have run away. And the fruitful land, it used to be a nice lush garden. Now it's a desert. All its cities were laid in ruins before the Lord, before his fierce anger. Really understanding why this is happening. It's happening because the Lord is punishing his people. We have to understand the extreme hatred that God has toward evil and toward sin and toward those that are dedicated to making sure evil is in this world. God will have no part of it, and that is a very good thing. That is a very good thing, that God hates evil and that he is on an absolute mission to destroy it. We want God to be that angry with evil and to get rid of it, because then that means there will be a good and perfect world, because he's not going to let any sort of evil, any sort of wickedness come into that world. Otherwise, God would, in some level, be okay and be even loving toward evil, and that's not who God is. Let's look at verse 27. For thus says the Lord, the whole land shall be a desolation, yet I will not make a full end. So here you see, there's the destruction statement. The whole land shall be a desolation. The whole place is going to be destroyed. But here's the hope. Yet I will not make a full end. I'm not going to destroy everything. I'm going to make sure there's a remnant. I'm going to make sure that even the people that go off into captivity, they're going to come back into the land. And that's indeed what happened. And Daniel was one of those guys, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were taken over to Babylon. Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, was one of those that was taken away to Babylon. Queen Esther later on would have been born more than likely in captivity. So her family, or maybe she was a little girl as she was taken away into captivity. These folks was the remnant, and that these their children would return to the land. Ezra would lead them back, and others would come back to the land. Nehemiah would then build the walls around Jerusalem. And so God's saying, I'm not making a full end. The land will be an utter desolation, yet I will not make a full end. I will have a remnant. Verse 48, for this the sun shall mourn, the earth shall mourn, because my people are being taken away, are being destroyed, and the heavens above be dark. So you see, there's this language of that creation is sad. Creation is mourning. The earth is mourning. Heavens above be dark. It's as if the heavens themselves, the sky themselves, is putting on funeral clothes to remember what has happened, or to mourn what has happened. For I have spoken, I have purposed, I have not relented, nor will I turn back. I am going to bring about this danger. And remember, Jeremiah sees this before it happens. He's having these thoughts. He's having these visions before they ever happen. Verse 29, at the noise of a horseman and archer, every city takes to flight. Everybody's running away from the military might, the horsemen. You think of them as being tank riders, and archers being missile throwers, shooting the arrows, if we're kind of comparing that to modern day warfare. They enter thickets, they climb among rocks, all the cities are forsaken. They go into the bushes, they climb above the rocks. They're leaving the cities and going into these places, and no man dwells in the cities. In you, O desolate one, what do you mean that you dress in scarlet, that you adorn yourself with ornaments of gold, that you enlarge your eyes with paint? Right here, this desolate one is actually going to be Jerusalem. What are you doing dressing in scarlet? What are you doing wearing ornaments of gold? And what are you doing to painting your eyes with paint? All of this would have been things that a a harlot would do, that a prostitute would do, dressing in scarlet, ornaments of gold, putting this stuff around the eyes to attract somebody to themselves. And here's what he says: in vain you beautify yourself. Your lovers despise you. So what Jeremiah, or what God is saying, is that Jerusalem, the people of Judah, are still trying to make alliances with the countries around them and even with the false gods. They're trying to attract them in this way. So it's kind of a metaphor that God is putting forth. And then he says, your lovers despise you. And this is actually the only time that this form of lovers, the Hebrew word for lovers here, is used. And it is speaking of a sensual type of love. This is not the good type of love that a husband and wife have for one another. It would be the illicit type of love that a person would have with an adulterer, with somebody that's not being faithful or just doing things wrong sexually. Your lovers despise you. So the people that you're like running after, that you think are going to satisfy you, they despise you. They seek your life. This is very terrible, dark language right here in verse 31. For I heard a cry, this is Jeremiah speaking, I heard a cry as of a woman in labor, anguish as of one giving birth to her first child. The city of the daughter of Zion, gasping for breath, stretching out her hands. Woe is me, I am fainting before my murderers. And what Jeremiah is painting a picture here, and even what he is seeing. So it's not just him coming up with this vision. He is receiving this from the Lord. He hears a cry, an intense cry of a woman in labor. That's the type of screaming. That's the type of shouting that is happening, giving birth to her firstborn child, or to her first child. And remember, this was in a day and age when pain relief would not happen to a lady that was giving birth. And then the cry of the daughter of Zion, gasping for breath. So there's this screaming of a woman in labor, but she's actually not giving labor. She's gasping for breath. And if you remember the daughter of Zion, Zion was the mountain on which what city was built? Jerusalem. And this woman is gasping for breath, stretching out her hands. Woe is me, I'm fainting before murderers. And so essentially it is these lovers that are despising the city of Zion is ultimately being killed by them, shouting, screaming. Very intense language our prophets oftentimes give us, and it helps us to remember what sin does to the heart. We think it's so attractive. Oh, it's going to be so good. Oh, this will solve all my problems. That's what we think when we first engage in some sinful actions. But at the end of the day, this is the kind of stuff that happens. It's pain. It's terrible. It's no good. So stay away from evil. Stay away from the things that are bad. Stay away from the things that God doesn't like. Instead, go back here. Embrace this fact that God will not make a full end. His discipline only lasts for a season. But if we follow him, there's great joy that will follow. We'll see you in the next video.